State Representative Jim Townsend with us, and it is primary election day, and you touched on the redistricting for Congress, and you mentioned right before we went to break the House in New Mexico. Republicans feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to flip enough seats to have a majority in the House, actually be...
We feel very comfortable that we're going to flip a number of seats. What we're working on right now is flipping enough seats to make a significant difference. And that significant difference is 11. And people would say, well, that's a lot, Jim, and it is a lot. But I've seen it swing by 8 more than once. I noticed that gasoline this morning was $4.91 on the national average. There is, people are hurting all across. Yesterday in Las Cruces, I stopped to get some gas, and there was a lady that saw my red license plate, and she thought I was a legislator in Doña Ana County, and she wanted to know which district I was in, and so I told her, and she said, well, you're not from Doña Ana County. And I said, no, ma'am, I'm from Artesia. And she immediately went in. She told me I was lucky because she wasn't happy with hers. And I said, well, thankfully I'm not that guy, And she said, all my money is being spent. And my husband travels, I forget, 26 miles one way to go to work. And that's the bad thing about high fuel prices is people in rural New Mexico are specifically hurt.
Well, let me ask you this. You're talking to an average voter.
Yep.
Whose family is very much impacted by the energy prices. How successful do you think is the message going to be conveyed that this is not Putin's fault, this is Biden's fault, and to bring it home to New Mexico, we have a governor who is, through her policies and the legislation that has been proposed and has been passed, that is not going to make it any easier for gas prices to come down, but if anything that is being done is encouraging even higher gas prices. How do you make those two stick?
Well, I think the only way to do it, and I try to do it when I speak publicly, is just base it on the facts. I have that drive in me to be political as heck sometimes because I'm Republican leader, but the fact remains that this governor and this president, when they came into office, were not supportive of the oil and gas industry. The president said he was going to work hard to change the fossil fuel industry, and this governor has worked hard to make the regulatory burdens on oil and gas more difficult. I know people that have waited 3 and 5 years for permits so that they could get a disposal well in. That's not right.
Right.
And so I think when mothers and fathers across New Mexico go to the gas pumps and they see the implications of the industry that many of us work in being harmed and in essence is harming their families, they're going to vote for a change. And it's just, it would happen if Republicans were doing that right now. When people of New Mexico do not believe that the administrations are good for their families, they vote for a change. There's so many things. I ran 2 polls across 10 districts in Albuquerque last year. One was on education. Should the dollars follow the child if a child moved? It was not political. Republicans and Democrats alike. It was like 86% of Republicans and 82 or 3, I don't remember exact, but it was strongly both Republicans and Democrats said, that makes sense. I'm already paying taxes. If little Johnny's not getting a quality education at school A and I want to send him to school B, should I have to pay another tuition? No. Everybody saw that. Same thing on fuel prices. Are you willing to pay a higher fuel price just to implement a political agenda in the fuel market? Republicans and Democrats both said absolutely not. I mean, that's not the way it's supposed to work. So I think when people in political offices quit worrying so much about whether it's Republican or Democrat and say, is it right for my constituents, you're going to see change. And that's what I've been working to change, is just get changes that make New Mexicans' lives better. That's what we ought to do.
Primary today, and again, the Republicans have the contested race, the more of the contested races, governor and lieutenant governor specifically, but there may be some others in other parts of the state. How important is it for the turnout to be, especially the Republican turnout in the primary? If people, a lot of people don't really get involved in the primaries because whatever, doesn't matter, I'm going to vote for whoever the party appoints or elects at that point in time. How important is it for there to be a decent turnout today in the primary?
It's really important. I think, yesterday celebrated D-Day, and there was, 4,500 or right at 4,500 men and women that gave their lives yesterday. 78 years ago today, they were still dying, so that we could have the right to vote and express our will, and so it's terribly important. It's what drives this nation. I hear people from time to time say, well, I don't know that it makes any difference. Well, it makes a lot of difference. It makes our country what it is today. So politically today, if you don't vote, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you don't vote, you empower your opposition you make their vote more powerful. And none of us want to give up our rights, whether it's Second Amendment or free speech or whatever. We take those pretty personal. So I think that everyone listening today, every employer who employs people today, they should be encouraging their employees and themselves to get to the polls and vote, because there's nothing better for our world as a whole than for people to speak. And here's something that has kind of haunted me for the last couple of months when I read it. Only about half of the evangelical Christians are registered to vote. Now that shocked me. Mm-hmm. Farther down in that report, it said only about half of those actually go vote. So only about 25% of the evangelical Christians actually goes to the polls and vote. And so you think, wow, Christians could make a difference if they went to the poll. And then the flip side turned in my head, and I thought, well, if they haven't been going and voting, then they must be responsible for some of the outcomes today. And that's haunted me, to be real honest.
Right, yeah. You don't want to think that.
You don't want to think that way.
Yeah, you don't want to think, well, I didn't vote, but I'm responsible for all of this that's going on. What kind of numbers do you think would send some shockwaves across the state? Because I think New Mexico tends to get painted as, well, we're a blue state, so from a national perspective, there's not a lot of help that comes in from outside. Because it's portrayed as such a blue state. What kind of numbers, or what do you think would present to the opposition? You guys got a battle on your hands this November, and we've got a chance at success. I say we, being the Republicans.
Well, I think it will be more results oriented than volume. We have 4 contested primaries in House races right now against incumbents. That's Larry Scott Randall Pettigrew, Rachel Black, and Jane Padrell Colbert in Albuquerque. I'm going to watch real closely how those 4 races go. We have a couple of people that are running in new seats. Tanya Moya is running in Kelly Fajardo's seat up in Valencia County. There's a man that took another one of the Valencia County seats up there that is running first time. So I think when people are looking at election results, they should look not so much at numbers, which I hope the numbers are big, but they should look at what the voters did when they went to the polls. What did they express as what was important to them? And I think you're going to see that people are going to vote a lot with their wallet, and they're going to vote a lot for their future. New Mexico has been 50th in education for a long time. We used to say, thank God for Mississippi, because sometimes they were 50th and we were 49th. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is education has been upside down a long time. I bet you, I know I have a son that lives off in the Woodlands because there was opportunity there, and I've even plotted against him a time or two to get him back into Mexico. Not so much because I want to see him, but those little girls and son of his are pretty special.
Yeah.
But when you drive down there and you see the opportunities that those kids have in that community, you realize that you're thankful that they're where they're at. So it is imperative that people vote because they want the future for their children to be better than what they see today.
Can you stick around just a little while longer? All right, we're going to break for the news.